Today we're going to be solving inequalities with variables on both sides, but we're also going to have to clear parentheses first. So here's a problem where we've got two sets of parentheses, one on the left and one on the right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to take this negative 4 and we're going to multiply it over this subtraction. And we'll take this 5 and we'll multiply it over this addition. So when we do that, what happens is the parentheses are now gone, and we're left just with a constant, negative 12, and a variable of a positive 4x on the right hand or left hand side. Now if you notice, the negative 4 times the negative x, common mistake is people put a minus sign, but I need to put a plus sign because two negatives make a positive. I'll bring down the greater than symbol, multiply the 5 over that sum, and I'm left with 5x plus 5. So from this point, I need to isolate the variable. So the way we're going to do that is going to take this positive 4x and I'm going to subtract it from both sides of this inequality. And once I do that, I'm just left with a constant of negative 12, and that is now greater than positive x plus 5. So the 4x is canceled out, and now I only have an x on the right-hand side of the inequality. Well, next we need to move this 5 out of the right-hand side and get it over to the left-hand side. And the way we're going to do that is another opposite operation. So this is a plus 5 here, so we're going to take 5 away from both sides. So when we have the same sign like we do here, and they're both negative, that means we are going to add those two numbers together. So when we add those two numbers, I end up with a negative 17 is greater than x. Another way to say this is x is less than negative 17 because the inequality sign points towards the x. Now oftentimes people will want to write it with the x on the left side and the negative 17 on the right. And if we do that, we are going to have to switch the inequality sign to make it match what we have up here. So you see how we have this negative 17 is greater than, because it's open towards the negative 17. Well, we still have that on this side. Negative 17 is greater than x. Now we'll go ahead and graph this. So we'll go ahead and draw our number line, putting negative 17 in the center. Bigger numbers off to the right-hand side, like negative 16, and one further from 0 than negative 17 is off to the left, negative 18. Now it's an open circle because negative 17 is not a solution, but the solutions are less than x. The solutions here, x, have to be smaller than negative 17. So the answers are off to the left-hand side. So let's try another one that's similar to that. Make this one about the same degree of difficulty. We'll try a negative 3 is being multiplied by an x plus 2. And we'll say it's less than or equal to. And we'll go with a positive 5 multiplied by an x minus 4. So in the same situation here, we need to clear some parentheses. The way we're going to do that is distribute. So we'll take this negative 3 here, and we are going to distribute it over that sum. And we'll do the same thing with this 5. And we're going to distribute it over this difference. So when we do that, we've now cleared the parentheses. We now have negative 3x minus 6 is less than or equal to 5x minus 20. So again, some things to watch for are the signs. The negative 3 multiplied by the positive 2, watch that sign, it ends up changing because a negative times a positive makes a negative. So from this point, we need to isolate the variable. The way we're going to do that is we're going to move the variable so it's on the same side of the inequality signs. So we're going to go ahead and subtract this 5x from both sides. And when we do that, since they're the same sign, we're going to add those two numbers together. So now we have a negative 8x minus 6 is less than or equal to negative 20. So from this point, we need to move that constant of negative 6 from the left-hand side. So the way we're going to do that is an opposite operation. This is minus 6 here, so we are going to add 6 to both sides of this inequality. And when I do that, I'm still left with this negative 8x. And it is less than or equal to a negative 14. So I had to subtract these two numbers because they're opposite in sign. And they're one further from 0. The negative 20 is further from 0, so that determined the sign. So I have one more step here. I need to get rid of this negative 8, my coefficient of x. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to divide by negative 8. And when I do that, a few things are going to happen. The 8's are going to cancel here, so I'm just left with an x, but we got to remember that important rule. So do you remember what that important rule is? Well, you guessed it. It's the inequality sign. We have to switch it around. When we multiply or divide by a negative, the inequality sign switches because negative numbers will switch the sign. So the bigger numbers are now smaller, the smaller numbers are now bigger. Well, from this point, we need to reduce this fraction. So we need to take out a common factor of 14 and 8. And so I'm going to take out a common factor of 2. 2 goes into both of those numbers. So the negative signs will cancel here. But 14 over 2 makes 7, and 8 divided by 2 makes 4. So there's my answer. X has to be bigger than or equal to 7/4. We could change that to a mixed number by dividing 4 into 7. Well, it goes in there one time with 3 left over. And so 1 3/4 is the same as 7/4. I bring down my inequality sign, so x needs to be greater than or equal to 1 3/4. If I graph that number, 1 3/4, I put that number here in the center, and then 2 is a number that's bigger than 1 3/4, and 1 is smaller. Notice that the 1 is further from the 1 3/4 than it is from the 2. We're going to use a closed circle here, and that represents that x, one of the values of x is 1 3/4. But it's also every number that's greater than 1 3/4. So I'm going to draw the line to the bigger numbers, to the right. So those are a couple examples of tonight's homework. On the next part, we'll go over a couple others that are a little bit more challenging.